I'm going to take you into another journey through history regarding who we are as a people, and proving the fact that in Jerusalem there were people who were black people who dwelt there prior to the 1948 Balfour Declaration. We were living there after 70 AD, even though a lot of us believe that we were scattered throughout the world, which the Bible does say that, but there was always a remnant that stayed. Even if they left and came back, they stayed. So this book is called The Invention of the Jewish People by Shlomo Sand. This book was published in 2009, and I remember when this author came out, he caught a lot of flack for bringing out all this information, and he did a lot of research to gather this information. So we're going to go to page 182, and I'm going to use another book, and I'll speak it when I grab it, but it's going to run in conjunction with this book. Page 182, let's go to Remembering and Forgetting the People of the Land. Remembering and Forgetting the People of the Land. I'm going to read this paragraph, and in this paragraph it reads, read along with me. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. Daniel chapter 11 verse 30. The consoling prophecy of the prophet from Babylon was interpreted by Rabbi Saadia Gaon in the 10th century CE as follows. This was a real rabbi. This was not a convert rabbi. This was a black rabbi. They are the Ishmaelites in Jerusalem. And then they defiled the mighty temple, because during that time Salahuddin had went into Jerusalem along with the Muslims and pretty much plundered it and took it, and they began to house their families in Jerusalem. That's why he's saying they are the Ishmaelites in Jerusalem. And then they defiled the mighty temple. The great Jewish scholar who translated the Bible into Arabic continued his commentary. He shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, Daniel 11 and 36. Outrageous words against the Lord of eternity till he discharge his anger with Israel. Then the Creator will destroy the enemies of Israel. He went on to interpret the verse, and many of them that sleep on the dust of the earth shall awake, and some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Daniel chapter 12 verse 2. Saying that is the resurrection of the Israelite dead, destined to eternal life. Those who will not awake are those who turned away from the Lord, who will descend to the lowermost level of hell, low conditions, and will be the shame of all flesh. So this is what Rabbi Saadia Gaon had prophesied, and also prophesied utilizing the scriptures that was prophesying on what would happen to Jerusalem. With this particular prophecy, when Jerusalem became a state of the United Nations, state of the U.S., they had a college where they presented this as a curriculum in that school, and they entertained the prophecy of Rabbi Saadia Gaon, which the people there are not the real Jews. They're Khazars. So let's drop down to this paragraph on page 183. Notice what it says. His important essay did not argue that all Palestinians were the direct or exclusive descendants of the Judeans. As a serious historian, he knew that over thousands or even hundreds of years, almost any population, especially in such geographic junctions as the land between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean, mingles with its neighbors, its captives, or its conquerors, Greeks, Persians, Arabs, Egyptians, and Crusaders. It didn't say Romans, but the Crusaders are part of that church, of the Roman Catholic Church, that is, had all come to the country and always mingled and integrated with the local population. Because you got to remember, after 70 AD, that place just sat there for almost 1,000 years, and then it started becoming mingled within that 1,000 years with Arabs, with Crusaders, with Ishmaelites, with all types of people. Pollack assumed that there was considerable likelihood that Judeans did convert to Islam, meaning that there was a demographic continuity in the agrarian people of the land from antiquity to our time, and that this should be the subject of a legitimate scientific study. But as we know, what history did not wish to relate, it omitted. No university or other research institution responded to Pollack's challenge. No funds or students were assigned to the problematic subject. No, they're not going to speak on this. For one, they don't want people to know the true history of Jerusalem. And as when you look at Egypt, people still don't want to hear the bones in the closet that the Arabs are not the true Egyptians. The Somalians and the Sudanese are the true Egyptians. But they don't want to talk about it. Bold as he was, Pollack was not the first to raise the issue of mass Islamization. And he pointed this out in his introduction. In the early days of Zionist settlement, before the rise of Palestinian nationalism, the idea that the bulk of local population descended from the Judeans was accepted by a good many. Okay, so keep in mind that the true Judeans were black, and that the new converted people were not black that moved in during 1948. Some of the Europeans were living there also in the late 1800s, but they were not Judeans. They were Greeks, they were Romans, they were Europeans. But the original Jews who were there, the original Judeans, were black. And I'll show you records. Israel Belkind, for example, one of the first Zionists who settled in Palestine in 1882, and a leading figure in the small Bilu movement, always believed in the close historical connection between the country's ancient inhabitants and the peasantry of his own day. So the ancient inhabitants were the Israelites. Before he died, he summed up his thinking on the subject in a small book, which included all the controversial assumptions that would later be erased. Why? Why was it erased? That would later be erased from national historiography. The historians are accustomed to say that after the destruction of Jerusalem by Titus, that was in 70 AD, the Jews were scattered all over the world and no longer inhabited their country. But this too is a historical error, which must be removed and the true fact discovered. This is why we tell you that a lot of the Palestinians, if you went through there was all types of documentaries before this big event happened of them getting destroyed by Netanyahu. There were black Palestinians there who didn't call themselves Palestinians, but they called themselves Jews, living in Palestine, living in the land, living in the outskirts of the land. They were sheep herders, they were cattlemen, they were Jews, the true Jews. The reason in this next paragraph, Belkind argued that the subsequent uprisings from the Bar Kokhba revolt in the insurgents of Galilee or in Galilee in the early 17th century indicated that most, next page, 184, that most of the Judeans continued to live in the country for a long time. So there were Judeans living in the country. And he said the 17th century. So we're going to go back a little further than 17th century. We're going to go back before even slavery started. A little bit before slavery started to show you that there were black Jews there. The land was abandoned by the upper strata, the scholars, the Torah men, to whom the religion came before the country, he wrote. Perhaps, too, so did many of the mobile urban people, but the tillers of the soil remain attached to their land, many finding reinforce this historical conclusion. Next paragraph. Many Hebrew places' names have been preserved, unlike the Greek and Roman names that were meant to replace them. So it never happened. Even though they took the land, their names never stuck. The inhabitants of the land kept their old names in those places. Just like here, they changed all the names of the states here, right? You have Ohio, Chicago, right? All of these are Indian names, but they changed these names. You have California, you have New York. All these are new names. It says a good number of burial places sacred to the local inhabitants are joint Muslim and Jewish cemeteries. The local Arabic dialect is strewn with Hebrew and Aramaic words, distinguishing it from literally Arabic and other Arabic vernaculars. The local populace does not define itself as Arab. They see themselves as Muslims or Falahim, farmers, while they refer to the Bedouin as Arabs. The particular mentality of certain local communities recalls that of their Hebrew ancestors. Now let's look at that Bedouin parts. It doesn't say that they were Muslims. It says that they called some of the people that were considered their Bedouins, they called them Arabs. Why? Because they kept the custom of the Arabs. But everyone there who was a Bedouin were not Arabs. Remember, they were renaming the people in these lands who already had names. So let's look at something real quick. Okay, so we're going to go into this book. It's called the Argonaut Press, the Itinerary of Ludovico di Varthema of Bologna. I'll keep this one wrapped because this is a pearl in my library, one of my pearls. See, it's the thing, when you know your history, you'll never come out of the truth. When you know the history, it's impossible to leave the truth because you know who you are. This is the itinerary of Ludovico di Varthema of Bologna from 1502 to 1508. Remember, in the invention of the Jewish people, we were speaking about the 17th century. But this is the 16th century, almost 15th century. It was translated from the original Italian edition of 1510 by John Winter Jones, FSA, in 1863 for the Hakut Society, with a discourse on Varthema and his travels in southern Asia by Sir Richard Carnac Temple. This book was written in this book was reprinted in 1928 by Argonaut Press, London. So let's take a look at southern Asia Minor. There's Asia Minor, there's the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, there's Israel there. You see the Dead Sea, you see Palestine, Damascus. Alright, these are the southern parts of Asia. There's Calabar. You can see how far Calabar is from Israel. Calabar and Medina, Jeddah, Mecca. Mecca's down below. Arabia Felix, Arabia Desert, Africa. Alright, so now you should understand the difference when we're reading about it. Okay, we're going to start on page 32. It says in Arabia Deserta, leaving Damascus on the 8th of April 1503, Varthema starts on a truly astonishing journey to Mecca by the Transjordan and Arabian route. Being the only European to traverse the intervening country until many years later. Alright, so I want to jump over here. Let's go to the next page and let's start here. On his journey, let's see his experiences. 12 days march from Damascus, but apparently 15 en route, including the stop at Al-Mazarib. The caravan reached a valley, probably the pass known as Aqabat Ash-Shami on the Hajj route. This name differentiates the Syrian Shammai pass from Aqabat Ali, the Egyptian pass a little to the west of it and between it and the Dead Sea. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty. Let's go here. Here Arabs, whom he estimated at 24,000, demanded payment for water, just as their ancient forefathers had demanded it in the days of Moses from the Israelites in the neighboring Aqabat Ali. So this is the same journey that Moses made, and the Ishmaelites denied them just like Esau denied them water. This brought about a fight lasting 2 days in which the caravan was victorious, though in the end the water had to be paid for. Now Ishmael is known for fighting because of the prophecy that every man's hand will be at Ishmael, at his neck. Every man's hand will be fighting with Ishmael. And Ishmael lives up to that, as you can see here. We're going to read. Ishmael loves to fight. April 29 had "It May Be Conjured" now been reached. The caravan wandered on for another 8 days, and by May 7th, it may be presumed it found a mountain which appeared to be 10 or 12 miles in circumference, in which mountain there dwell 4,000 or 5,000 Jews. So wait a minute, I showed you the map. This is the area of South Asia. We read in the other book, The Invention of the Jewish People, where when the Israelites were scattered, they didn't go far. A lot of them stayed close by and went back to Jerusalem. So this is in the 15th, what is this? This is in the 16th century, and it's speaking about the Jews who stuck around. It says, in which mountain there dwell 4,000 or 5,000 Jews. Now let's look at the description of them. Who were clad and colored like Bedouin Arabs. And that's what we just read in the last book. It doesn't say that they're Arabs. It said they were clad and colored like Bedouin Arabs. There's more. It says Badawi, and are described as being possessed of a fanatical hatred of all Arabs, and they had their reasons. Why? Because the Arabs would put them in captivity, just like they did Joseph in the Old Covenant, just like they did us during the transatlantic slave trade, right, from West Africa to Saudi Arabia. Their inhabitants was the Calabar oasis in the north of Medina, and its name is said to be taken from a Hebrew word kabar, a castle. The Jewish inhabitants noted by Varthema were probably originally refugees from the north in consequence of the many persecutions they met with the hands of the enemies of all kinds. Remember we said we'd be hated of all people. They are first heard of in AD 568, so they had been there since 568 AD. How about that? Way before the Balfour Declaration. And are mentioned by Abu al-Faraq Ali in his Agani, or songs, in the 10th century. So they have managed to live in this place for almost 10 centuries. They were reduced to great poverty by Muhammad in 628 and driven out by the Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab. Where were they driven from? The Orient, Jerusalem. But they were back again in 1173 when Benjamin of Tudela found a colony of them. See that? So they were still around. These are Israelites. But it said that they were clad and colored like Bedouin Arabs. So we're going to find out what that clad and colored really is. Okay, let's go to page 14 and we're going to find out more about these clad Bedouin colored looking Jews. It says here, at the end of 8 days we found a mountain, Calabar, which appeared to be 10 or 12 miles in circumference, in which mountain there dwell 4,000 or 5,000 Jews, who go naked, and are in height 5 or 6 spans, all right, 5 to 6 feet, and have a feminine voice. Now, the Europeans in that day that came to visit, they would call the feminine voices men who would act like gentlemen. That was considered a feminine voice. When you don't raise your voice and you speaking or whispering, that was considered a feminine voice back then, because the women normally would whisper. Okay, the men spoke loud. So this is, and why were they speaking in a feminine voice? Because they were at war. They were cast out of their land. They were cautious. So they were whispering. This is what it means that they had a feminine voice, and are more black than any other color. So they were dark Jews, black Jews, also known as Negroes. They live entirely upon the flesh of sheep and eat nothing else. That's the Levitical laws. They are circumcised, that's a law, and confess that they are Jews. So they knew that they were Jews. And if they can get a Moor into their hands, what is a Moor? A Moor is none other than another melanin man, black man, who follows the ways of the Arabs. It says, and if they can get a Moor into their hands, they skin him alive. All right. At the foot of the said mountain, we found a tank of water, which is water that falls in the rainy season. We loaded with the said water 16,000 camels. Water was very expensive in those days, because water was so scarce. Water was very expensive there. We loaded with the said water 16,000 camels, whereat the Jews were ill pleased, and they went about that mountain like wild goats. And on no account would they descend into the plain, because they are mortal enemies of the Moors, the Arabs. Okay, so I'll stop there, because why would they be mortal enemies of the Moors? Because these are the brethren who lost the faith and became Muslims. They gave up their heritage and they converted to Islam. These are black Jews who converted to Islam. Right? It was like Galatians chapter 1 and verse 8, when was it Paul? He said, it says, even if an angel comes down from heaven and teaches another gospel, let him be a curse. So for them to convert to Islam, that's a curse. That's a curse. So they became enemies of their brothers. So the Moors are Israelites who converted to Islam. We're at page 12. This is chapter 2. Let me show you who the Arabs truly are, the Ishmaelites. It's going to mention the Arabs here, of what they were like back in those days. They have the same characteristics as the Israelites that took Joseph into captivity into Egypt. So it says here, I'll put a hash mark here. The said Arabians are very small men and are of a dark tawny color. Okay, this is the Arabs. And they have a feminine voice. What this feminine voice means, again, it means whispering. It means when a man does not speak with his full baritone voice, with the volume and the baritone in his voice. So when you speak as a gentleman, as they say in the English, that is considered a feminine voice. And long, stiff, and black hair. I'll read it again. It says here, the said Arabians are very small men and of a dark tawny color, and they have a feminine voice and long, stiff, and black hair. And truly these Arabs are in such vast numbers that they cannot be counted, and they are constantly fighting amongst themselves. So they have a lot of feuds with each other, just like today. Family feuds. They inhabit the mountain and come down at the time when the caravan passes through to go to Mecca, in order to lie in wait at the passes for the purpose of robbing the said caravan. They carry their wives, children, and all their furniture, and also their houses, because they were nomads, upon camels, which houses are like the tents of soldiers, and are of black wool and of a sad appearance. On the 11th of April, the said caravan departed from Mizreb. There were 35,000 camels, about 40,000 persons, and we were 60 Mamelukes in guard of the said caravan. The Mamelukes were slaves that became warriors, okay, for the Muslims. 1/3 of the Mamelukes went in advance of the caravan with the standard, another third in the center, and the other third marched in the rear. The Mamelukes were like ninjas. They were that tactical. You must understand that we performed our journey in this wise. From Damascus to Mecca is a journey of 40 days and 40 nights. Thus we set out from Mizreb in the morning and traveled for 20 hours. Let's read this about the Arabs down low. It says, when we halted at the said waters, we always had to fight with a vast number of Arabs. So the Arabs, Ishmael was always fighting. But they never killed more than one man and one lady. For such is the baseness of their minds that we 60 Mamelukes were sufficient defense against 40 or 50,000 Arabs. For pagans, there are no better people with arms in their hands than are the Mamelukes. See that? So the Mamelukes were Israelite children who became slaves, who became warriors for the English, for the Romans. Let's go back to the invention of the Jewish people. Let's go to page 185, and let's pick up where we left off at. But now you understand that there were black Jews in Jerusalem after reading that book. There was also Arabs who lived in that region as well. Now let's see how the Arabs treated the Jews that were left behind. It says here, the Phaladan are not descendants of the Arab conquerors. The farmers are not descendants of the Arab conquerors who captured Eretz Israel and Syria in the 7th century CE. So this is talking about the farmers who were black Jews. The Arab victors did not destroy the agricultural population they found in the country. They expelled only the alien Byzantine rulers. It did not touch the local population, nor did the Arabs go in for settlement. Even in their former habitations, the Arabians did not engage in farming. They did not seek new lands on which to settle their peasantry, which hardly existed. Their whole interest in the new countries was political, religious, and material, to rule, to propagate Islam, and to collect taxes. So as we're reading this, now you should have the understanding that there were still black Jews dwelling in that land. I'm going to show you a video of the Jews who stayed in that land before the Balfour Declaration in 1902. Okay, don't fall asleep. I'm giving you history. This is good history that you should know about. Okay, so whenever you're dealing with someone, you could elaborate on the history of our people in Jerusalem and our people who are scattered abroad. Historical reason, this is page 186, continuing. Historical reason indicates that the population that survived since the 7th century had originated from the Judean farming class that the Muslim conquerors had found when they reached the country. It's telling you right here that the Judeans were the farming class. They were the black people. To argue that after the conquest of Jerusalem by Titus and the failure of the Bar Kokhba revolt, Jews altogether ceased to cultivate the land of Eretz Israel is to demonstrate complete ignorance in the history of the contemporary literature of Israel. The Jewish farmer, or the Judean farmer, like any other farmers, was not easily torn from his soil, which had been watered with his sweat and the sweat of his forebears. Despite the repression and suffering, the rural population remained unchanged, so the Israelites still dwelt in Jerusalem. Dropping down, it says, although the ancient Judean peasants converted to Islam, they had done so for material reasons, chiefly to avoid taxation, which were in no way treasonous. Indeed, by clinging to their soil, they remained loyal to their homeland. Ben-Gurion and Ben-Zivi saw Islam, unlike Christianity, as a democratic religion that not only embraced all converts to Islam as brothers, but genuinely revoked the political and civil restrictions and sought to erase social distinctions. So they were different from the so-called Jews who are there today and from the Arabs who are there today. Dropping now to the last paragraph, the authors underline that the Jewish origin of the farmers, Fellahin, could be revealed by means of philosophical study of the local Arabic language as well as by linguistic geography. Dropping down to the highlighted pencil, some 210 villagers still bore clear Hebrew names, and in addition to the Muslim law, there was, for a long time, a code of felon laws, farmer laws, or unwritten customary judgments known as Sharia al-Khalil, the laws of the patriarch Abraham. Beside many village mosques, there were local shrines commemorating such sainted figures as their patriarch, or three patriarchs, certain kings, prophets, and great sheiks. So the Israelites still dwelt in Jerusalem, a very small remnant.
My grandfather is here for a long time, for maybe 500 or 600 years. It's very important for every person or every community, to belong to the land. When, the Israeli came here and the British, Balfour Promise, and Balfour promised to give the Israeli, the Jewish people a state. They make the border here. You say my land, I have a document. They say, okay, you have a document, this is your land, but it's not to live, not to make anything with this land. And all the army was here. The Turkish army, the Israeli army then, the Egyptians, they was on that side.
It's during this war?
Yeah, this is the
1948 war. Is this during the time that when all the tribes had to scatter to Jordan and different places?
Yeah, we want to give you money to sell my grandfather. If I sell you this land here, I sell them. I sell my grandfather. I sell my blood. I sell my remember. I sell who I am.
Over here, page 187. The forced conversion to Christianity before the arrival of Islam is also stressed, providing added justification for the mass conversion to Islam that would follow. A lot of people did not want to become a Christian because they knew it was a false religion. So they became Muslim so they could keep they were like crypto Jews in Jerusalem. They still had to pay taxes in order to keep their land. So they had to convert or be baptized as Mohammedan. It was not only the system of taxation that led many Jews to adopt the conqueror's religion, but also the fear of being displaced from the soil. This is why you had a lot of black Gazians still dwelling in Gaza and Palestine. A lot of them got killed from Netanyahu going down there, killing them, destroying them in the last year or two. All right, he's responsible for that.
Stayed here began to marry from the Palestinian side. So for that we have to go
Palestinian, yes sir.
We are about 40 families in both sections.
Yeah,
Which is in the center of the Muslim culture.
I see.
Now, what's really important to give an idea about the way we are living with the Palestinians and the way we are living with the Israelis.
Yes sir.
As Palestinians, usually I say we are privileged.
Good day.
We are well accepted, respected. If you go to the forces today, you find many brothers, many Palestinian girls. You find Palestinians married to sisters from the forces. We never felt discriminated because of our color.
I see.
And I think this has to do with our contribution in the national
The
history.
struggle, yeah.
It's well known the African community in the West City used to be always among the avant-garde.
Yeah.
For example, if you take the first Palestinian female
Yeah.
to be put in Israeli jails in 1967, came from the African quarter.
Oh wow.
I'm talking about Sister Fatima Barnawi.
Sister Fatima Barnawi, okay.
In 1967, she was sentenced 30 years, of which she passed 11 years. Deported, she came back in 1994 with Chairman Arafat. Today she is the chief of the Palestinian police, female.
Oh,
The
nice.
Palestinian Authority. Now me, myself, together with my cousin, we were arrested in 1968, also for contribution in the national struggle. I was sentenced 20 years, of which I passed 17 years.
Oh, wow.
In 1968, I was released in 1985 in a big exchange of prisoners. Now, our relation with the Israelis is totally different.
Different, okay.
Usually when I sit with Palestinians, I say to them, okay, brothers, you are oppressed, but we
Are more oppressed. Let me, I'm gonna focus the camera on you, because me, I'm not interested, so. Okay.
But we as Afro-Palestinians, we are double oppressed. First, as Palestinians, second, because of our color. They call us Kushi, niggers.
Wow.
I'm not surprised because discrimination and racism in the Israel society is an ideology. As you know, in the Israel society you have two main groups. The Oriental one, Sfaradim, the European one, Ashkenazim. A lot of hostility between both groups. But today, the most discriminated among those various groups are our people, the black Jews from Ethiopia.
Oh, that's right. They're the most discriminated.
Unbelievable the way they treat them. And I know cases of those people already 20 years in the country, still living in convoys, caravans. But if you are European Jew, blonde with blue eyes, maximum in 1 month you will be in a very bombarded apartment.
Oh, wow.
Late in the 80s, there was a campaign of donation of blood. So our people from Ethiopia went like other Israelis, donated blood. At the end of the day, they found that all blood donated by them was thrown to the garbage.
Whoa!
6 years ago, there was a big scandal in this country. A sister from Ethiopia, member of the parliament, went to the hospital to donate blood. They refused to take her blood. So I hope such a message will be delivered to our people all over the world, because unfortunately our people are illusioned by the Israelis.
In 1929, Ben Zivi's position was more moderate. Obviously, it would be mistaken to say that all the felons are descendants of the ancient Jews. All the farmers are descendants of the ancient Jews. You see that? Black Jews. But it can be said of most of them or their core. Here. It says here, the great majority of the felons do not descend from the Arab conquerors, but before that from the Judean felon, who were the foundation of this country before its conquest by Islam. So way before Islam, our people were still dwelling there. Down at the bottom. From that moment on, the descendants of the Judean peasantry vanished from the Jewish national consciousness and were cast into oblivion. They were lost. They lost their heritage. They lost their names, pursuant to Psalms 83. Let me read this and I'll end it with this. This is the new Jews that are there now, the convert Jewish people that are there now. This goes for them. The proselytes themselves, as we have seen, tended to cover up their Gentile origins, eager to be purified and integrated in the holy nation. Proselytes sought to erase their impure past. These are the people there today. A past when they had consumed unclean animals and worshipped celestial bodies, and so become newborn in the eyes of their community and faith, not in the eyes of the Most High. Their children's children hardly knew or wished to know that their forefathers were unclean Gentiles who had entered the special Jewish congregation from outside. They are not Jews. And all these young men today who think they are Jews, they're not Jews either. They're going off a lie. That goes into Jeremiah 16 and 19.